G'day mates, welcome back to another one. My name's Mike. We're going to be talking about rugby league, specifically round 7 of the NRL. And I don't know, the rounds, it just keeps getting better and better every week. It's been a hell of a competition this year. The first game up was Roosters versus Storm and was probably certainly one of the games of the round, if not the game of the round, and a close one. For the Roosters, Teddy was back at fullback, and definitely the Roosters noticed he was back. That is for real. Michael Jennings started. He's had quite a story to tell, I must admit. He's 35, back playing again after almost 3-year absence because of drug conviction, and he played his 300th game last week. He managed to score a try too, which was his first try since he's been back from suspension. The scores at halftime were 12-6. The Storm, the Storm managed to score two tries in the first half, and the Roosters managed to get one through Michael Jennings. It was always going to be a tight physical game, and certainly with Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, man, that guy is a beast. I would hate to be playing against him or even on the same team. There was one time in the game where he was going for the ball or trying to save a try or stop a try, and just dove in head first, and bodies were flying away like skittles. He's a beast, that man. So anyway, always going to be a tight one, always going to be physical, and it was. There wasn't many scoring opportunities in the game, and then there was quite a bit of drama. Anyway, Teddy took a quick 20-metre restart. At one point, I think it was about 25 minutes to go in the second half, and Munster held him down and gave away a penalty there. So it was little moments like that, but the Roosters almost took advantage of that straight away, but for a forward pass. So there was just lots of little things that were preventing momentum, and it was just swinging backwards and forwards. But it wasn't until the 68th minute when, the Munster penalty was relevant because he got yellow carded. But it wasn't until the 68th minute until Munster actually came back on before the Roosters were able to score and get across the line. And it was Suaalii and Joey Manu combined from a high kick and scored quite a good try, and so they levelled the scores. So 12 all with about 10 minutes to go, and then the intensity lifted just another level. It was sort of going through the motions, but then it was all on after that. The Storm were able to manage, get some good field position, get a couple of repeat sets, and then Xavier Coates managed to get across the line, to take the lead. And I think there was about 4 minutes to go, but Melbourne managed to hang on to the end. Melbourne, they seem to sort of, if it's going to be close, at the moment they tend to be on that right end of it. Roosters, they looked a lot better, a lot sharper, a lot more physical. They were definitely in the game. They're still not probably hitting their strides at the moment. Next game up was the Dragons versus Warriors, home game for the Dragons in Wollongong, and the Warriors haven't had a great record there. They had won the last 2 games there, but not a great record in Wollongong. Warriors are coming off a 90-minute draw, so you could tell they were probably a little bit lethargic, but man, the Dragons look really good. You don't want to take much away from there. I guess one word, we're talking from a Warriors point of view here, but one word you use to describe this game is disappointing. I think they're pretty disappointed in their performance. The Warriors tend to have we talk about consistency. Well, they have inconsistencies within games. So they had a good start. I think they was sort of felt like they dominated for the first 25 minutes or so. Just some stupid penalties. Rocco Berry's penalty was there was absolutely no need, but that was just a moment early on. It was just a momentum shift, and just let the Dragons back in. Couple of missed tackles, and then Dragons again, to the Dragons credit, they took those opportunities and converted them into points. In the first half, I think the Warriors had 4 errors and 4 penalties, but 20 missed tackles. So certainly didn't play like the way they have been playing. One gripe I had with certainly the refereeing or officiating in the first half. And look, if I've got this wrong, can you please let me know in the comments? We're always learning, aren't we? But the Warriors were hot on attack in their first part of that first half, and we got, I think, about 2 or 3 repeat sets, and then didn't convert into points, didn't convert that field position and those opportunities into points, and then the Dragons had a crack with the ball, and then next thing you know, the same sort of infringement, the Dragons got a penalty straight away. There was no repeat set. And I just couldn't work out what the difference was, but it was a complete momentum shift, and it definitely was quite noticeable in terms of the advantage that the Dragons gained from that. But anyway, the Dragons scored straight after half time to make it 22-6, and then there was a penalty right in front. For the Warriors. Oh yeah, the Warriors had a drop out on their own goal line, and it didn't make 10. So Roger Tuivasa-Sheck picked up the ball before it had made 10. So it was a penalty right out in front. I mean, just that sort of stuff happens, but yes, Sean Johnson was absolutely blowing up about it at Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and I couldn't get my head around it. But Shawnee J, man, honestly, you can't be talking to people like that. But also, he was the one that didn't kick the ball 10 metres. So it was his issue. If he had kicked the ball 10 metres, then it wouldn't be a conversation. But I must admit, it did look like that the composure and it definitely unsettled SJ's, and I mean, there was a few errors he made after that. Just dropped it cold. I think the Warriors were about 5 or 10 metres out from the Dragons line, and he just dropped it absolutely cold. So look, definitely headspace wasn't quite there, so they've got some areas they need to sort of address there. Seven penalties to 5. I thought the Warriors had actually made more penalties than that. So it was a bit that, from that point of view, it was a bit closer. But I guess that the Dragons were able to capitalise on on the penalties that they got a lot better than the Warriors were. And anyway, I think Rocco Berry had 3 penalties alone. But anyway, how good were the Dragons? I must admit, it's so good seeing them a lot better than they were. Shane Flanagan has done a really good job with some resilience, certainly in defence. But on attack, you can just see the speed that the Dragons are playing with. It's so much faster. And but yeah, just going back to my point in terms of the Warriors, they're very inconsistent just within a game. So the Dragons won easily, 30-12. The Warriors hardly firing a shot, really. They weren't really in the game. So time to move on from that one. Eels versus Dolphins was the next game up, and that was in Darwin. Wayne Bennett was unwell, so he couldn't make the game. First half was pretty close, and the heat and humidity. And I mean, it was just sort of felt like the game was going through just the motions. There wasn't too much exciting. I was largely not that interested in the game. The first half there was 3 missed conversions. No one got a kick, so there must have been 3 tries in the first half only. And then stats were pretty half, although stats were pretty even at halftime, even though the Dolphins had, I think the biggest difference there with the Dolphins had 9 errors to 4. But yeah, neither team really dominating either way. Pretty boring game. And then Eels started second half the best, but only getting a penalty out of the positive start they had made to the second half. Then the Dolphins managed to just absolutely put on a show after that. They just clicked right into gear, and you couldn't stop. You couldn't be stopped. The Eels just had no answer for it. They scored 4 tries in about 7 or 8 minutes, and it just in one spell. But 2 great dummy to get that momentum going and get some points on the board. There was 2 great dummy half runs from Jeremy Marshall-King, and also 2 tries to Max Plath. So the playmakers definitely took advantage of the big fellas getting tired, and the Dolphins just sort of ran away with it from there. But maybe the Dolphins handled the conditions better. But man, when I think what we're seeing in the NRL this year, when teams get a bit of momentum and a bit of roll on, there's only a few teams that can sort of stop those momentum shifts in terms of defensively. But when some teams get a roll on, it is really hard to stop that momentum. And 4 tries can be scored in a quick period of time, so you got to be on your game all the way. So there was 8 tries in the second half, and I think 9 unanswered tries to the or 7 or 8 tries in the second half, but there was 9 unanswered tries to the Dolphins. 3 tries to Bostock, so he had a great game, and what a way to celebrate Jesse Bromwich's 300th game starting at prop. I think he's played about just under 320 games all up in the NRL, but he has officially started 300 games at prop, and easily setting the record, or he's now setting the record. Trey Fuller at fullback for the Dolphins looked really good. He's come in for Tabuai-Fidow. I think it's only for another few games, but the Dolphins looking really strong. They've been pretty consistent this year, and up towards the top end of the table. I think they got beat by the Broncos a week or 2 ago. Again, the Broncos had some pretty good momentum in that game, but Dolphins looking really strong. Next game up was the Panthers versus Tigers at Bathurst. Tigers were very competitive in the first half. They were well in it. I think it was 10-6 at halftime. And then, Brad Schneider did an ankle tap on Olam without he didn't have the ball. He was chasing in support, and should have really been a sin bin offence, but managed to stay on the field. Tigers missed a certain try, slightly missed pass from Naden to Staines, and so just those fine little moments that Tigers haven't been able to just put that polish on. Junior Tupou got injured in the first half, Naden to wing, so there was a bit of change up with the Tigers lineup. It was a close game, high intensity for the most part. Tigers are definitely much more competitive this year, that's for real. And really quite difficult for either team to score until Alamoti had a pretty good individual effort to score with about 16 minutes to go for the Panthers. It was his first game for the Panthers, I think. Managed to break a tackle, line break, and beat the fullback to score. Tigers were throwing the ball around, definitely giving it a lot of air and chancing their arm. Absolutely. No, you can't question them for trying. The execution just wasn't quite there. A few misdirected passes, poor play of the ball. But there isn't a more patient team than the Panthers' attack. That is one thing that just stands out to me. And certainly if you compare it, you can compare it with most teams, but you compare it with the Warriors against the Dragons, they certainly weren't patient. They just weren't just taking their time. They weren't just playing percentages, putting it into the end goal. The Panthers don't feel flustered if they're not managing to convert into points. They'll just keep going. Just keep going. It is machine-like, but very impressive, and certainly what stands them out against everyone else. So that all the other teams, the Tigers were putting up a good defensive fight, but the Panthers just broke them down. But yeah, this young Tigers team, they've got a lot of potential. Certainly showing a lot of resilience and confidence. And attitude in defence, which has been missing. Other big talking point with the Panthers this week was that James Fisher-Harris has signed, last week, James Fisher-Harris has signed for the Warriors for 4 years. Next year, he's asked for an early release from his contract. That's got to be one of the best signings that the Warriors have ever had, ever. It would be probably a top 3, maybe, top 5 anyway. And if you put it from the Warriors' perspective, what better prop could you get in terms of replacing Whenua Blake? I mean, maybe Payne Haas, but he's not going anywhere in a hurry. So that was a huge news, huge bit of news for the Warriors. Game after, so the Panthers won that one 22-6. Titans versus Seagulls was up after that. Another close game, that one, very high scoring. I don't think either team was really too interested in making any tackles for that one. I guess it was optional, but the score was 30-34, and the Titans have played two pretty good games in a row, and I guess just being a little bit unlucky on not getting the W in either one of those. But anyway, a few changes to the Titans lineup before right on kickoff. Tanner Boyd came in. I think someone had to, or I can't remember who dropped out last minute, but Jaden Campbell obviously wasn't playing. Oh no, it was Sami was named at fullback, and he wasn't quite ready. Failed a fitness test just before the game kickoff, so Tanner Boyd kind of came in, and I think Brimson sort of ended up at fullback. David Fifita didn't start, or did he start? Either way, David Fifita, I think there was a late change in the end. I think he went back to the bench. Anyway. So the Seagulls scored 2 tries in the first 10 minutes, and then Titans scored 2 tries in the 10 minutes following that. Kieran Foran setting up both of them. He has been playing pretty well, and their lead playmaker. Certainly noticed the difference with Tanner Boyd there playing for the Titans, I must admit, and especially with his goal kicking, kicked really well. It was a great first half from the Titans. They'll be disappointed with the Seagulls try right on halftime, but the halftime score, it was pretty high scoring. It was 24-22, so it was a pretty good first half. Foran, he's just playing probably the best footy of his life, to be honest, with a few try assists in the last few games, and he had in that first half another line break assist that led to a try, but one of his try assists was off a banana kick, which was it was quite something actually. It just went perfectly. Worth a look, and if you get a chance to look at the highlights. But yeah, there's 7 lead changes in the game, and Manly managed to win. So in terms of Des Hasler's last set of results, I think that's 13 straight losses for him. Obviously not just at the Titans, but his previous club at the Seagulls. 2 tries, and I just wanted to sort of point out, like, you know, from a Titans point of view, the 2 tries for the Seagulls in the second half, one was from an intercept, and one was just a pretty weak try off Titans error. So, you know, those 2 tries, or at least one of them, didn't happen, and the Titans are, you know, if not would have won. So I felt like Titans played better for the majority of the game, but if you were to look at both teams, I guess, you know, Manly could definitely go another level. They weren't you know, as clinical as they could have been, but also they didn't capitalise on all the opportunities. Their defence wasn't great either. The Titans obviously scored 30 points, but yeah, the Titans are close. They just need to be more clinical in those key moments, certainly on defence, but it's getting better. You know, I think they've been averaging on conceding 30 points a game this year, so that's certainly an area they need to work on. Let's hope the Titans don't get their first win of the season this week. Anyway, next game after that was the Broncos versus Raiders. Broncos winning that 34-10. Very wet game. It was just after the Titans game and just up the road in Brisbane, but yeah, much wetter game, pretty, you know, sort of torrential at times. Yeah, look, the Raiders look more like scoring in the early parts. They even had a try disallowed, which was very marginal, but yeah, you know, they were very close to scoring, and then Reece Walsh just took a chance. You know, when an opportunity came, he took it. But around the 20th minute, the Broncos scored scored 2 tries off Raiders errors, but yeah, nothing was going the Raiders' way. Straight after that, they missed out on a turnover from a kickoff, and instead of the Broncos penalty, you know, instead of a Broncos strip, two-man strip. And it just got worse from there. When you look at the Raiders, they had a 19-year-old 5'8". They've got an 18-year-old fullback. And between those two players, there was 3 errors and 3 tries. One was a drop catch. Another one was the fullback out of position, and Ethan Strange missed a... Ethan Strange missed a tackle, just a one-on-one tackle for the Broncos to score. And I mean, what a baptism of fire for that young fullback, Chevy Stewart. I mean, he's 18. He's playing against one of the best teams in the competition at Suncorp in awful conditions. He handled himself exceptionally well in the second half. So I don't want to point out, the errors, and obviously I did. But the main point being is that, I mean, that's one of the most challenging scenarios they could be in. So they've just got to try and find a way. They need the support around them to sort of get through that. But in terms of where the Raiders are going, they're looking pretty good. So the other big thing was it was 28-0 at halftime, but Jamal Fogarty left early in that second half with what turns out to be a bicep injury, and he's going to be out for 8 weeks, I think it was. But not until so that was just after half time, but not until the 50th minute that the Raiders finally have something to celebrate. And then in terms of errors a player going through a little bad patch within the game, it all shifted to Jaden Hunt for the Broncos. He missed a tackle. He did a high tackle, and then he dropped a pass when he had the open line. So the poor man had just a few moments there. But after all of that, and after the first half and everything, the Raiders actually won the second half 10-6. It doesn't count for much because the Broncos already had the points on the board. The Broncos won back-to-back for the first time this year. So I mean, they'll be making a move back towards the top end of that ladder. They definitely deserve. They're a team that should be up there. Anyway, so the next game after that was the Bulldogs versus the Knights. Bulldogs winning that one 36-12. Bulldogs are looking much better this year, I must admit. And to be fair, they're a team that I like to watch. They're pretty exciting. So definitely try and watch the Broncos games. But anyway, Kalen Ponga was coming into the game under a bit of an injury cloud. He had sort of a niggle from the previous week. But he did play, or did start. Max King was given the all clear to return for the Bulldogs. He came on an hour before, or he was named an hour before kickoff. Bulldogs dominated most of the first half, just as Knights were getting back into the game with a try to Dylan Lucas. Glenn Marzu knocked on, I think it was off the kickoff. And the Bulldogs took advantage of that. They had a great opportunity, so they managed to sort of turn that momentum. Again, the halftime score was 18-6 to the Bulldogs. Ponga lasted about 10 minutes into that second half, and he's got another injury. I think that news has come out this week. Everyone's pretty well aware of that, but he'll be out for 12 weeks. So the Knights are in some real trouble. They haven't been probably playing as well as they did last year, and that just sort of gets worse if Ponga's not playing for them. That's for real. It also mixes things up for Queensland Origin. Anyway, Bulldogs kept chipping away and scored 3 more unanswered tries to take it out to a 36-6 lead, and that was it. Got a bit messy towards the end of the game. There was a couple of yellow cards and a scuffle, but scuffle with a whole lot of people. But really, it was between Jack Hetherington and Reid Marnie, and I think everyone's probably seen a little bit of a scuffle in the changing rooms. I haven't heard any more than that. I do know that Jack Hetherington is suspended. The Knights managed to get a consolation try for Best, managed to get across the line, but third win for the Bulldogs this year. The Knights have only had 2, and they're going to struggle to win too many more with Ponga out. Sharks versus Cowboys, the last game of the round. That Sharkies team, man, they are looking really sharp. They've only lost one game. They're at the top of the table. Cowboys have not been a bad team. They've been towards the top end of the table so far this year, but the Cowboys absolutely got pumped 42-6. I know it was a home game for the Sharks, and I talk about momentum and all of that, but this game was just one of those. The momentum was all with the Sharks. Cowboys just really battled to compete in most areas of the game. But yeah, Sharks scored a try from a mistake at the end of the first set, and really it was all downhill from there. Sharks scored 4 converted unanswered tries to leave 24-0 at halftime. Cowboys didn't have any scoring opportunities in that half. I don't know what the territory numbers were, but they didn't. I think they might have got close once, but really didn't have any opportunities. Sharks didn't give them anything, and they didn't get more in the second half either. Cowboys' first try only try came in the 64th minute through Valentine Holmes. He's looking good this year, I must admit, though. But yeah, that was after the Sharks had got to a 36-0 lead. Just a side note, Valentine Holmes and Kale Iro look identical. I mean, their face maybe not, but their haircut, their body style, shape, and the way they run, they are just absolute lookalikes. It's hilarious. Cowboys made way too many unforced errors, but I think that sort of started to deteriorate towards the end of the game, and it was already gone. But yeah, 7 converted tries. Sharks made a huge statement. Nico Hines didn't miss a conversion, and Sharks are at the top of the table for the first time since 2016. So the other news from the Sharks this week was Dale Finucane has retired, 251 games. He retired with immediate effect due to concussion symptoms and ongoing symptoms, and was advised medically that he should stop. So, shout out to him. What an awesome career. He's been a good, just a hard grafter in the middle of. He's played his whole career that way and in that position, and played for New South Wales. So all the best to him and his family in retirement. Think he's going to stay on with the Sharks in another capacity at the club. So let's take a look at round 8 now. Looks like it's going to be another good round ahead of us. 3 games on Anzac Day, so the round's going to be reasonably well spread out, but certainly for the Anzac Day games, it's going to be very ceremonial and have a ceremonial aspect to it, which is good. But in terms of the first game, we've got the Warriors versus Titans, and the good thing about that is it's in New Zealand. It's good to get an Anzac game in New Zealand for a change, right, other than the Warriors getting pumped by the Storm in Melbourne. Dylan Walker's a massive in for the Warriors, but Kurt Capewell's out, so that's a big loss. He's got a sore neck from the previous game. Jacob Laban gets a start on the edge there in place of Kurt Capewell, and Zion Ma'o makes his debut on the bench for the Warriors. In terms of and then in terms of the Titans, no changes. I think they're enjoying a bit of consistency, although they've had a few injuries, and Jaden Campbell coming back and then getting injured, and Tanner Boyd started last week, so they've had still a few disruptions, but anyway, no changes, so at least they've got a little bit of consistency from last week, and they have been performing well in the last couple of weeks. The Titans are still searching for their first win. The Warriors will definitely look to bounce back after their performance last week. They're at home, and I think that they will be looking to make a statement in this game, certainly against the last place Titans. Again, the Titans have been playing pretty well, but the Warriors will be targeting this game to make a bit of a statement and try and right the wrongs of last week. My tip, the Warriors are strong favourites, but so I'd have to go along with that. And I think the Warriors should win this game 13+. Second game up on Anzac Day is Dragons versus Roosters. Quite a few changes here. Dom Young and Sam Walker return for the Roosters, which is pretty good for them, but Daniel Tupou and Victor Radley are out. Tupou with a knee injury, Radley with a hamstring. That's since teams were named just yesterday on Tuesday. So that means Connor Watson goes to lock, and Michael Jennings will start at centre. And for the Dragons, Ravalawa he's got a sore knee, so that means Jack Bird will come in at centre. Zach Lomax will go back out to the wing. Dragons are coming off a hell of a great win, one of their best wins in a few years, perhaps, I don't know, but certainly an awesome performance. They deserved the win against a pretty strong Warriors team, and the Roosters look really good against the Storm, so they'll want to build on that. I know there's lots of personnel disruptions at the Roosters over the last few weeks, so that hasn't helped them, but look, yeah, the Roosters are favourites. I have to sort of lean that way, but I think it'll be pretty close. So I think Roosters, my tip is Roosters 1-12. We'll see how that one goes. It's a pretty hard one to pick, I must admit. And then the third game on Anzac Day is in Melbourne. They tend to have an Anzac game in Melbourne every year. Storm versus Rabbitohs. No changes for the Storm. They're getting some good consistency at the moment, so they'll be enjoying that. In terms of the Rabbitohs, Damien Cook and Jai Arrow are back. Shaq Mitchell in for Tavita Tatala, and Jacob Gagai in for Tyrone Munro. So they've had a few changes there. The Rabbits have had the week off. They're coming off a bye, so I think that will be a good thing for them, especially because they've really been battling this year. But I'm not expecting, we can't tip the Rabbitohs until they deserve it. So, Storm at home, they should win comfortably. 13 plus is my tip. And then I think there's one Friday night game, Seagulls versus Eels. Josh LIA is back from suspension. That means Matt Lodge goes back to the bench. Nathan Brown is back on the bench. Ethan Sanders gets a go in the halves for the Eels. I think it's his debut, but Assey got concussed last week, so he couldn't play this week. But I think it's basically the third 5/8 that the Eels have had in 4 games since Mitchell Moses was injured, and the Eels have decided to go for Ethan Sanders rather than Blaise Talangi, who's on the extended reserve list. And then Micah Sevo is in for Sean Russell on the wing. Ryan Madison is in for Bryce Cartwright. There's, I think, a few changes on the bench for the Eels. It's too many to list anyway. So the Eels have made quite a few changes since their loss in Darwin. I think Brad Arthur's been reacting to that performance and probably needs to send a message. Will that change anything? I don't know. I think we need to wait and see. The Eels are definitely struggling without Mitchell Moses, although Dylan Brown's been playing reasonably well. You lose one of them, you're going to notice it. But Seagulls at home should win this. My tip is 13 plus. Tigers versus Broncos in Campbelltown is the game after that one. John Bateman's gone to lock, and Sam Fainu gets a start on the edge, which is a big thing for the young fella. So this is for the Tigers, and in terms of the sort of the big thing for me with the Tigers, being a rugby union fan as well, Solomon Alamalo is starting on the wing. Now he has played a lot of rugby in New Zealand, but he's had a few 2 to 3 years off, predominantly due to mental health challenges he's been working through. But when he was playing for the Chiefs, he was playing really well at fullback predominantly, or on the wing. Probably on the wing predominantly, but he had sort of moved into fullback and was performing really well in fullback before he took some time out of the game. He was on the cards for making the All Blacks. I'm just glad to see him back playing some sort of footy, and Benji Marshall's picked him up. I think he's got some good skills. He's a big body. He's still probably pretty quick, so I'm just interested to see how he goes, but I wish him all the best. He's coming for Junior Tupou, who is injured, so hopefully Solomon Alamalo can make the most of that opportunity. In terms of the Broncos, well, they've got a lot of changes coming in this week. Payne Haas, Adam Reynolds, Dean Mariner, and Brendan Piakore are all returning from injury. Payne Haas and Adam Reynolds being the big ones there, but that's been offset by Ezra Man and Selwyn Cobbo out injured. Yeah, look, the Tigers are a lot better this year, but look, I think the Broncos will be too good, even though it's a home game for the Tigers. I was thinking it could be a closer game than what the odds might suggest, but I'm going to actually tip Broncos to win by 13 plus. I just think when you've got a guy like Reece Walsh, he's worth a few tries, so whether he scores them or otherwise, I just think the Broncos will be too good, especially with the players that are coming back. Cowboys versus Panthers up in Townsville. Just a couple of tweaks to the Cowboys, nothing major, nothing reactionary to their result against the Sharks on the weekend. Griffin Neem starts at prop and Taumalolo goes back to the bench, and then Tom Makaele is onto the bench for, I think, his first game for the Cowboys. And then the big news at the Panthers, Nathan Cleary is back, which means Brad Schneider's out. Although Brad Schneider deserves an honourable mention for his performances in the hot seat. Taylor May is back. He had a week off due to personal reasons. Not many changes to the Cowboys, like I said, and so they'll be going for still a little bit of consistency there. But look, even though the Cowboys are at home and they should bounce back from last week, I think the Panthers will be still too strong. However, I'd suggest that it will be a little bit closer than the odds may suggest. My tip is the Panthers 1-12, so we'll see what happens there. Dolphins versus Knights up at Suncorp Stadium. Home game for the Dolphins at Suncorp. The only change to the Dolphins after the great win they had last week, Kurt Donahue is back, replacing Sean O'Sullivan on the bench. So pretty minor change there. Doesn't impact the starting 13. Ponga's out, which is massive for the Knights, as I've touched on earlier. David Armstrong gets the first go at fullback. Ponga's out for 12 weeks, so David Armstrong has an opportunity to really have a good run at it. Dane Gagai is also back, and he's going to be the captain in place of Ponga. And Jed Cartwright replaces Jack Hetherington, who is suspended on the bench. Dolphins had a great second half last week. I think with Ponga out and the Knights have been struggling, Dolphins at home, Dolphins should win this reasonably comfortably. I'm going 13 plus. Is a reasonably common theme in the games this week. I feel like they are reasonably one-sided, except for, Dragons Roosters, I think maybe a little bit closer than people think. And I think the Panthers should win against Cowboys. But yeah, look, I don't know. It's reasonably predictable this week. The final game of the round is the Raiders versus Sharks up in Canberra, with Jamal Fogarty out. I believe he's out for a 12-week period, similar to Ponga, different injuries, but same sort of time frame. That means KO Weeks comes in at halfback, and we've got a couple of really young, the Raiders got a couple of really young guys in their halves, with a very young fullback, so their spine is pretty youthful. And I think a fair chunk of the Raiders team's pretty young. Braden Trindle at the Sharks, he's done something naughty to get dropped. Daniel Atkinson will get the start, and Sione Katoa comes back after suspension, replacing Sam Stonestreet, who had a dream debut, he'd say, he's a local Sharks junior. So for him to get that opportunity and play as well as he did here, it was about as good as it gets for him. So we'll see more of him, I'm sure. I just think the Raiders are going to be too young. I know it's at home, but I think they're sort of too young, and the Sharks are too good. So I'm tipping the Sharks actually to win this one reasonably comfortably at 13 plus. So in terms of the table and where things are at, as I said, the Sharks are top, and so let's do a sort of a run through of where the table where the table stands at the moment at the end of round 7. The Sharks are number 1, Storm number 2. Both those teams have won 5 games out of 6, and both had a bye. Dolphins 3, Panthers 4, Seagulls 5, Broncos 6. So Broncos are back in the top 8. Raiders 7. They have been playing pretty well and just keeping getting a few wins on the board. They are definitely it's likely they'll struggle with a few injuries they've got. Cowboys 8, so that rounds out the top 8. You've got the Dragons in 9, Warriors in 10, Roosters in 11, Bulldogs in 12, Tigers in 13, Eels in 14, Knights in 15, Rabbitohs in 16, Titans in 17. Titans obviously losing in the week. Rabbitohs having the bye means that they'll go ahead of the Titans. So anyway, I'd sort of suggested before, the Titans are likely to lose their game this week. They'll stay at the bottom, I'd say. I feel like in the bottom 9 teams, the Warriors and the Roosters are probably the best shot there to get into the top 8. We'll see how the Eels go when Mitchell Moses come back, because they're probably a top 8 side when they're playing well. Cowboys, Raiders, Broncos, Seagulls, Panthers, Dolphins, Storm, Sharks. Yeah, look, that fight for the top 8 this year is going to be exceptionally tough. A few teams have stepped up. You could argue that the Bulldogs and West Tigers might be competing there too. So yeah, getting harder and harder to pick, although I think this round's likely to be reasonably predictable. We'll see how we get on. But look, enjoy it. Enjoy Anzac Day. Remember those that have gone before us and fought and sacrificed their lives so that we can live in the world that we are today. Anyway, have a good one and catch you next time.